I feel like I've always had an entrepreneurial piece of me, but I had so much fear that what if I step out and fail? I don't know if I could deal with that regret. And I think for both of us, it bubbled to a point, because we were making good money there. Yeah. We were comfortable. Yeah. But I think it just bubbled to a point is we have to do this. And if we fail and completely fall flat on our face, we're still going to sleep good at night because we can't deal with this junk anymore.
Hi, this is Coach Joe Lucas, and welcome to the Magellan Network Show. My goal inside of this communication, this show, is to share with you my nearly 30 years of coaching some of the most successful financial advisors in North America. We're going to be talking about strategies, syntaxes. We're going to be bringing guests on from time to time, and I'm going to share with you what's working now. So think of this show as sort of like a little one-on-one kind of mini coaching cast, if you like, where we're going to be going in depth from time to time on strategies to help you grow your business, get more effective, become more efficient, find balance in your time management, grow your business, and quite frankly, whatever else is going on in the world today. So before we get to today's episode, I'd love for you to do a couple things for me. Number one, make sure that if you're watching this on YouTube, that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're doing the audio, make sure that you give us a review on whether Spotify or Apple. We'd really appreciate that. And quite frankly, that does help. It does matter when you rate things and like things and subscribe to things. It helps us get the word out to more of the industry. And lastly, I have a very special gift for you. Go to MagellanNetwork.net, so one word, MagellanNetwork.net, and I have for you a complimentary membership, 100% gratis, where you can tap into about between 50 and 75 hours of masterclasses, forms, tools, templates, and strategies. So please go ahead and make sure you go ahead and get that claimed, smash the like button and subscribe. And please go ahead and leave us a review on whatever podcasting platform you're on. And now, let's get to this week's episode.
Hi, this is Coach Joe Lucas, and welcome to this episode of the Magellan Network Show. And very special episode today. We're on the road here in Deer Valley / Park City, Utah, just wrapping up our Empire Mastermind meeting. And the gentleman next to me, Brian Boughner, co-founder of the Fiduciary Alliance and also co-founder of Parallel Financial. Brian, welcome to the show. Great to have you here. I've been doing a theme with a lot of our Magellan Empire members about going independent and running your practice and stuff like that. And I want to talk to you about that. But before we do that, I always like to get a little background. Most advisors have a kind of your unique story of how they got into this. Yeah. It wasn't like they were born and they went to Harvard, got an MBA, and went to Wall Street. A lot of them are accidental advisors, right, from that perspective. So I just want to start just like 3 to 5 minutes. Just kind of tell us a little about yourself. Where you have a unique story where you were born, your birthplace, and just kind of tell us how you got here today.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I was born in Panama, Central America. My parents worked for the U.S. government down there on the Canal Zone, and we had to move to the States and at some point there. So we moved in 1984 to Miami, grew up down there. Yeah, how I got into business was not an accident, but it was not planned by any means. Got a degree in marketing, which, I try to tell people that's like getting a degree in basket weaving. You might as well. And then actually I went into full-time ministry.
Really?
And I did that for 5 years, got married. We had our daughter, and 5 years later, I was still making less than a starting school teacher.
Wow!
And we had we were working at a church, had not so great experience, and I just made the decision. I said, look, I can still serve people and honor God and do the things. It just doesn't need to be my job.
So,
let me just finish.
No, go ahead.
And it was 1999.
Perfect timing.
Which, guess what? You open the newspaper, every job was what?
Stockbroker. Yeah, that's a good point. So that's interesting because you went from being a leader of people, which you still are, by the way, right, doing the Fiduciary Alliance. So how did you pick stockbroking, being a stockbroker, that's what it was back then, versus like you said, you were making less than a starting school teacher, so like any job would have been better economically, right? So like what attracted you to the financial world?
Interesting enough, I've been reading the Wall Street Journal daily since 1991.
Okay.
Every single day. So even in college, we either students and I would read cover to cover the Wall Street Journal every day. So it was always something that just I was attracted to. I never had any money to invest.
Right,
it was still something that, and so again at the time I was applying for a lot of different jobs, but Charles Schwab was because I was in Central Florida at the time.
Okay.
They were hiring people with no licensing, no experience at all. They were just looking for folks. Can you relate to people? Can you deal with people? We'll train you all the other stuff. And it was a great place to go. We're in these cube farms. It was basically a call center, but we're all in our mid-20s in there, and we're all trying to figure things out, and we're all starting families. Some of my best friends to this day were made in that environment. So it was a really good place to learn.
So in Schwab, were you on outbound lead gen, or were you more on the advice giving 1-800 help me?
So when I started Schwab, I was basically resetting passwords on the website. I was just thank you for calling Charles Schwab. How can I help you today?
Right.
That whole thing.
Yeah.
But then as I got licensed, as I got more involved, when I left there, I was managing. I had a book of 120 clients.
Okay.
They were their active trader division.
Okay.
So these were clients generating a tremendous amount of commissions. And what I was a validator. They would call in and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this strategy, and I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at that. And then I would break these trades down or break these strategies down and kind of give them the risk and all the other things involved. And I'd had the same 100 folks that I developed relationships with. And so it was actually a really cool job. It still didn't pay a lot, but it was still it was a great way to learn about the market.
So what caused you to leave Charles Schwab? How did that come about?
2003, 2000 happened, and then the next 3 years, the market just kept crashing and crashing and crashing, and then, of course, 9/11 happened, but 2003, they just kept, it was I think they're on their 4th or 5th round, and they had 4 centers. Mm-hmm. Our center in Orlando got completely wiped out.
They whacked the whole thing.
They just, from the executive VP to the admins, we had an active trader thing, and they came in one day, and they just laid us all off.
Wow.
And I went into banking. So right about that time, things were going in real estate. I went into banking after that. I started to learn about lending.
Okay.
And that was a really cool place to be, but I wanted to get back into the investment side. Okay. I got my CFA during that time. I got my CMT. The banking was really good from the sales standpoint, again, because we're out in the community now. You're meeting people. So did banking, lending. Then we moved to Atlanta. Then I got into the trust side and the wealth management side. Did that with Bank of America for a while. Moved to Greenville, South Carolina with BB&T. And then this other event happened called 2008. Does anyone remember that one?
Sure.
Did that for a while. And, after 2008, a lot changed, obviously, in our industry, which, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that. And it's not that we were just being asked to do things that was clearly to the benefit of the institution, and not to the benefit of the client.
Right. So the conflict right there.
Yeah. Yep. And so it got to a point, and my business partner and I, we sat down and said, look, we can do this better. We can offer a better service to our clients. We can charge them a heck of a lot less, and we can look in the mirror at night and feel really good about it. What we're doing.
So how did you meet Anthony? How did you meet your partner?
I was the portfolio. So we were on a team.
Okay.
I was a portfolio manager, and he was the relationship manager.
Okay.
So he was kind of the, sales. He was doing a lot of the lending and stuff in there, and I was really focused more on the investments.
And you're both up in Greenville at this time, right? Okay, good. So what was the tipping point when you guys sat down and said, we're going to do our own gig? There's that moment of clarity, right, where we're going to do this. What was that for you and Anthony?
Well, it had been building and building, and we'd been talking about it because of that, that conflict of interest that we just kept seeing over and over again. But it also got to a point, again, as you get older, we're just not wired to work for big corporations. Mm-hmm. I mean, you would start in January, and they would say, okay, your new comp plan's coming out for the year, and again, this is how you're providing for your family. And they wouldn't actually release it to you until April or May.
Right.
Year's halfway done, and then you're going to find out how you're going to get incentivized. It was just so, just so many things that were happening, and we just You know, up until that point, I felt like I've always had an entrepreneurial piece of me, but I had so much fear that what if I step out and fail? I don't know if I could deal with that regret. And I think for both of us, it bubbled to a point. Because we were making good money there. Yeah. We were comfortable. Yeah. But I think it just bubbled to a point is we have to do this. And if we fail and completely fall flat on our face, we're still going to sleep good at night because we can't deal with this junk anymore. Right.
And you're young enough, you're with the CFA, you and Anthony are very employable. Right. So you'll always get a gig in the game, right? From that perspective.
But I want to make something clear. When you leave a bank, it's not like you're like, all right, I'm bringing my book of clients with me.
No, you got used to zero.
You sign your leases, you get ready to go, and you start at zero, and you got to go get it.
Yeah. So let's talk about, Parallel's been around for how long now, you and Anthony?
We're coming up on 12 years.
Good. Let's break it up into like the first 6 years and the last 6 years, right? Yeah. The entrepreneurial struggles that we all have gone through. I've gone through in my business, stuff like that. So what was your strategy to develop and grow your business? Because like you said, you leave the bank, man. Like those assets are coming with you initially, right? So like day one, doors are open up. Parallel Financial's now here. How did you guys go about developing business?
So we positioned ourselves just purely as an asset management firm. So we were an RIA.
Yep.
And we tucked underneath, and I'll get into that a little bit later. We tucked underneath a platform, like an aggregator type thing.
They were in Atlanta, I think.
They were in Atlanta.
That's right.
They're not even around anymore.
Yeah, no name. We don't get into it.
I don't want to get into it. But we tucked underneath them. We were the very first firm to tuck underneath them.
Oh, guinea pig.
They'd gotten some. This is 12 years ago. But they got a little private equity and some family money and all this other kind of stuff in there. And they were going to build this thing out, do this thing. We were the first firm to join. And but we just did asset management. That's it. We had some really good strategies, some really good things that we were doing, and for the first few years, that's how we pitched ourselves.
Okay.
And then we learned after a few years that we are just touching the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
Here.
You're getting some of the clients' money but you're not doing their wealth. You're not doing the wealth business.
Exactly. There's so much that we were missing out of. And then, quite frankly, you can be the most amazing money manager in the world. You're going to have a bad year.
Yep.
And when that's all you do, and that's all you mean to that client, and you have a bad year, they're going to move. They're going to pull and move. So we started as that. We had a few folks from the bank follow us, and then over the years, I think we've had more just kind of drip in here and there. But so that was good. It kind of gave us a little bit of a seed, and then we just went out and I mean, you just hit the pavement and you do networking. Like we weren't like big online marketers or anything like that. It's just what are the circles that you're in, where are the places that you're at. Go tell your story. Go meet with people. Ask them for if they know of anyone that can benefit from it, and just wash, rinse, and repeat over and over and over again.
That's great.
Yeah.
So that's how you started. You made that transition into more wealth management. You basically bootstrapped Parallel. You and Anthony out there networking, stuff like that. Then how did you come to the decision then to start taking on advisors in Parallel? First.
Oh, in Parallel.
Yeah, we'll talk about Fiduciary Alliance in a little bit.
Okay, yeah. So Parallel, that's our wealth management firm, our retail firm.
Yeah.
I actually had a client come to me, and he said, "Listen, my son-in-law wants to get in this business."
Okay.
And he, and I won't get into the whole story with him, but then we brought on our first advisor then. And then we started realizing, I think we've got something here, and we can help folks. And again, 10, 12 years ago, there was a lot of people moving to the RIA channel, but it wasn't as, like in the past 5-6 years that we've seen. It wasn't prevalent. But there was some movement there, and so I started just putting out LinkedIn, job ads for
using that marketing degree you got, right?
Yeah, and just putting things out and saying, hey, and even saying like, look, we don't pay salaries, but we will help you build your business and grow and do these things. And you're not going to get a ton of folks, but when you do get someone and they bite and they're interested in it. And that's how we've our advisors that are with us now. I think we're up to 6 additional advisors, 6 or 7. And again, that's just in the upstate of South Carolina. That was all on LinkedIn.
Right.
Stuff.
That's interesting. Yeah. Very good. And so what do you think on Parallel side? What attracts an advisor to want to join Parallel
today?
I
think our team is top notch. I think our folks our support team is amazing. We have a very different model than I think a lot of people do, where they They pay advisors, salaries and bonuses and things like that. We have a very simple model. It's you eat what you kill.
Right, it's like a partnership model.
Day one.
Yeah.
And so you come in and we start at a 50% payout, which I think a lot of people say that's too high. Like you're
Right.
giving away the farm and all this other stuff, and that's where we start,
Right.
and we offer them support, and we pay for their office and their assistant and their computers and all their tech and all that other stuff, and then we help them be go be successful. And I think there's not a lot of places that do that, and so for us it's a very unique offering because we say, look, the first 2 years are going to be rough,
Right.
but if you can let us help you and follow these systems for the next 2 years and help you build this thing up, you're building, and we try to get them to see you're building your own business. Like this isn't, you're not coming in working for us.
Right.
You're building your own book of clients, and we're helping you do that. And what's happening right now is I've had a few conversations recently with some folks. They're in the finance world.
Yeah.
But just like Anthony and I were, and it's interesting, they're kind of getting to that age, and they're like, I don't want to deal with this anymore.
Right.
I want to go build something for myself.
For my family, for their families.
And this is the way I want to do it. And so I think in the parallel side, that is, that's it's few and far between. Like, we don't get a ton of folks, but when we do get somebody, I think it's a great thing.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about the Fiduciary Alliance, our latest venture a little bit, but again, I've worked with you and your partner, I think we started 6 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. I want to talk about partnerships.
Okay.
Business marriages without sex, right? From that, at least hopefully, right, in that regard.
Yeah.
So, I've always found in my work as a coach with partners, they kind of go through seasons, right? There's this initial, we're going to make shit happen, excuse my language, make stuff happen. Then reality smacks us, then the stress starts happening, and then there's I call it the valley. And half the partnerships don't survive the valley. Right. There's a disconnect. But you and Anthony rode that wave, and now you guys are really, 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 I mean, you're very different people, which is complementary, right? But for advisors who have partnerships, what advice could you give them to make their partnerships better?
So, yeah, when you say ride the waves, I'm like, I think they were tsunamis.
I'm not trying to give you
I think there were tsunamis and hurricanes at some point. But it is it really is a marriage, and I'm sure everyone watching and listening have the best marriages in the world and never have any issues.
No partners issues, right?
But for the rest of us, it requires a lot of compromise, a lot of just letting things go, a lot, just learning to respect each other. Anthony and I are different as the day is long. Yep. In every aspect. And it took us a while to begin to respect those differences. Because, again, you feel, look, we're all, typically you're an entrepreneur, you got that, type A type thing, right? Yep. Well, then this is the way it should be done. Right. Well, when you got two completely different people attacking the same issue from very different ways.
Both type A's, by the way.
Both type A's, both competitive,
That's
both,
right.
Drivers, but, saying, well, I'll do this way, they'll do this way, it can create some issues. So I think time, a lot of forgiveness, just a lot of, seeing the big picture, and communication and talking through things. I do think that one of the mistakes that we made early on was, we would communicate a lot on this, right? And meaning whether that was texting or whatever, and that had to stop, right? And we, when you conflict on something like that, it never ends.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, there's no tonality to it. It's always misinterpreted and stuff like that. So you and Anthony, and I give you guys a lot of credit because it would have been probably some levels emotionally easier just to separate. You do your thing, he does his thing.
But I think in like any marriage, a divorce is even when the parties are, it's so messy and I think that for both of us, we realized that, and again, I think we're also just so stubborn. It took us a lot longer than it should have, but we both realized that a divorce would just be so ugly and nasty and awful that let's try to figure this thing out.
And you have.
Yeah, we have. Oh, we get along great. Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely.
Sorry. So Parallel's doing great. and it's a great place for advisors who want to kind of go independent, check it out, do something for their families, from that perspective.
Right. For an advisor that literally is like, I don't want my own brand. I just want to plug in.
I want to do my thing.
I still want to own my and do my thing, but I want to plug into something and not I don't even want to think about anything at all.
Right.
Parallel is a great place for that. Yeah.
So then I remember I was actually driving to South Carolina. At the time I'd work with a team in Atlanta. I had to work with you guys up in Greenville. And I remember we kicked around this idea of putting this other thing together, right? Mm-hmm. So I know it's called the Fiduciary Alliance, and that's a very purposeful,
fantastic name.
But yeah, again, good thing that marketing degree came in handy again, right? So walk me through the iteration and birth and concept of Fiduciary Alliance. Like when did that come to you? How did you envision it?
Yeah.
You shared that with me. I know. I remember this day. I was in the car. I remember I was going to see my mother up in South Carolina.
Oh wow.
It's a certain thing. So let's talk a little about the birth of the Fiduciary Alliance.
Hi, Coach Joe Lucas here, and I'm just breaking here for a moment just to do a couple quick reminders. Number one, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel or our podcast. In addition, please leave a comment or a review. Those things really, really matter. And share this episode with 3 of your colleagues inside the financial services space. And lastly, make sure that you go ahead and claim your free membership inside of Magellan Network. Now back to this week's episode.
So when we left BB&T,
yep,
and we started our thing, we tucked underneath
that entity, yes.
And we were the first one, and they promised, okay, we're going to take a cut of your revenue, but we're going to provide this and do that and do all these things for you, and your tech stack and all these other things. And we were like, great, we don't have to deal with it. And then we get there, and it was like, oh wait, they don't have any of this stuff figured out.
You got to do it. Yeah.
So here we are trying to start this thing, and we're figuring out, and they're taking a chunk of our revenue, and it was like, so we stayed with them for 3 years.
Yeah.
And we left very amicably. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like, but we just said, listen, we want to do this ourselves. Mm-hmm. And when we left, that's when we decided, like, listen, there's value here in this type of platform format. Mm-hmm. So let's set it up that way. We had our Parallel Financial brand on day one, tucked underneath them. So we created, when we left to go fully on our own, that's when we created Fiduciary Alliance. That's the RIA. Right. And then we took Parallel Financial and made it a DBA of that.
You tucked underneath it, right?
Tucked underneath our own firm.
Right.
We sat on it for 3 years. Mm-hmm. Didn't do a thing with it. And just made sure that all of our infrastructure and all of our things were in place. And then October of 2020, again, we keep throwing these dates out like 2001, 2008. Right. Well, what was 2020, right? COVID. But that October, we onboarded our first advisor into Fiduciary Alliance. We are up to 10 advisory groups now. Right. And by the end of this year has been a very blessed year for us. We will have another probably 7 advisory groups join here. The fourth quarter's pretty busy. Good. And then into January as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what do you find what are some of the challenges? Like you said, you are really 2 different models. You obviously got Parallel Financial, which is more the solo advisor. I'm not going to say employee model because it's not an employee model, but they're really advisors. That's their identity, right? But now with Fiduciary Alliance, you're dealing with advice for really business owners now, in addition to, right? Yeah. Do you see any differentials in terms of how you, as a leader, how do you deal with them, and what are those differences?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that in the Parallel Financial world, just to your point, we're focused on business development. Like how do we help them grow? How do we help them take care of their clients, dive deep with their clients, things like that. So it's really just advisory. On the Fiduciary Alliance side, in many ways, it's the same. In the sense that, maybe we're not providing their real estate, and maybe we're not providing all their tech stack or some of those other things, but we, if you go to our website, fiduciaryalliance.org, I mean, it tells you right there, like we help, like if you have to be in growth mode, right? That we don't, like, if somebody just wants to come in and like, I'm gonna just tread water for the next 3 years. We're not your place. We're here to help you grow your book of business. And so we're always trying to come up with systems and ways and strategies and things like that. So there is actually a lot of similarities between the both. But to your point, the Fiduciary Alliance advisor, they've got some practice management things
Right.
that are potentially keeping them up at night that we're looking to solve and
Right.
we're looking to deal with
Right.
and help them on that as well. But look, there's a lot of platforms out there. There's a lot of options out there, and when we talk about table stakes now,
Yep.
well, they do my compliance, they do my tech stack, they do this,
Yeah,
they that. No, everyone's doing that now.
That's right.
So what is the differentiator? And I think what it is people, if you're in growth mode, you want to grow.
Right.
And what we've discovered, and I know that you preach this all the time, everybody tries to go to this shiny object thing of like, well, I've got this great marketing thing and we're going to do social media and we're going to add this and do all these other things.
Right.
And it's like, how'd you get your last 10 clients? Well, let's see. They were referred by this person. They were referred by that person. This accountant referred me this person.
Right. It's fascinating, right?
And it's like, well, then why are we doing all this shiny stuff? Let's triple down on this and
Because it's boring. I can tell you why it's boring.
Yeah.
That's the challenge. And you face it leading Fiduciary Alliance. I face it in my game all the time, right?
Yeah.
The latest and greatest shiny object. So, if an advisor, there's really, if you think about it, and there's advisors who are like in wirehouses, firms, right? And then advisors who are already quasi-independent, whether it's through an insurance working through an insurance company or one of the other large, independent broker dealers and stuff like that. What do you think are some of the biggest mistakes advisors make when selecting? Do you think in essence, they go for the money? Like it's all about the grid and that's all we care about? Like what do you notice? Like you talk to a lot of advisors.
So,
where are the mistakes in your opinion?
All right. So it depends. Okay.
Yeah.
Because, we get our advisors, typically there's two sources. They come from either the broker-dealer world, they're tired of dealing with the compliance, they're tired of dealing with the regulatory issue, the horrible payouts, all those types of things, right? Mm-hmm. But the problem that we face with those type of advisors is they don't necessarily have that entrepreneurial mindset.
Right.
Because they're with a firm, their firm's taking care of everything, so they still kind of feel like, even it's the craziest thing for me, because they eat what they kill. They're not getting paid a salary.
That's right.
But they have this employee mindset, and so when we try to explain to them, like, look, you're going to actually own your own business and do this. Sometimes it's hard for them to wrap their head around it. And that's why a lot of those folks end up going to another broker-dealer firm that pays them a lot of money, that puts them under a 7-year deal and all these other things. And guess what? They're right back where they were before.
Yeah.
I know, because I've talked to many of them, and they go take the money. They're like, you don't understand. It's going to be better, and it's this and that and this and that. And then I'll circle back with them a couple years later, and they're always like, no, this was not a great deal.
It's interesting you say that because I have a client, and he was considering leaving a firm. And he had two options. One was go independent. One was to go to a competitor where he was currently at. And he chose the competitor, which I found very interesting but I asked him one question. I said, if you make this move, he's still kind of young. So even when his deal's up, it's 9 years, by the way, not 7. Just FYI. He'll still be in his mid-50s, so it's not like it's like it's his last deal. But the one thing I said to him, I said, give me your why this, and he's a pretty big producer. He goes, I'll suck it up for the next 9 years, but my family's set for life.
Yeah.
And I kind of get that, right, from that perspective. But to your comment, which I think is really important, I think advisors have 3 types of identity. They have the advisor identity, right? That's really the core identity. That's why you got in the game. Right. Then, like you and Anthony became business owners, right? And then there's the entrepreneurial side, right? And ideally, like if you think about it in the Fiduciary Alliance, you're looking for that entrepreneurial business owner advisor, right? In that regard, right? In parallel, we kind of want the entrepreneurial advisor that doesn't want to be a business owner. We'll do that part for you, right? Operations and everything like that. Right. So that's what's really interesting about your world. Is you can really serve both those communities. The entrepreneurial advisor who's good at biz dev, that could run a business, they like their business game, but they want a collaboration, they want an association, right? And then the one who doesn't, hey, I just want to do my jam, I want to do planning, take care of my client. I don't want to know how the sausage is made. I don't need to deal with that. So the other thing I want to talk about is you're big into personal development. You're part of our Magellan Empire Mastermind. You do a lot of stuff, Fiduciary Alliance, in terms of practice management, coaching. Sure. So talk a little bit about like why do you think culturally that's so important for organization to do?
Because I mean, it's easy to say, oh, culture trumps all, and I know that's a cliche that we use a lot, but it's actually 100% true. Culture trumps all. Like it really does. it fixes so many things at your firm if you've got a great culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some people luck into it,
Yeah.
and they just, you end up with the right people and you just all happen to be, but that's just not typical. You have to invest into that, and you have to constantly be going back to that over and over and over and over again to make sure that that is right and it's doing what it needs to do. Whether it's your staff, whether it's the advisors you have at your firm, whether it's I'd say even with your clients.
Right.
I mean, you have to really keep tending that ground to make sure that that is there. It's vital, because you get a culture problem, and it's not like, oh, I've got a bad employee or I've got a bad advisor or this or that. We can just chop it off and then move on. You get a bad culture problem, and it just infects into everything, and then all of a sudden, you're like, where do I even start
Right.
to try to deal with this? So
Right.
you have to be proactive and stay on it and stay ahead of it and invest into it. It's vital, without a doubt.
That's great.
Yeah.
So on the culture side, you do certain things. You do your annual conference, right? So walk us through a little bit about, like, on the Fiduciary Alliance side. It's about associations. I always say, one of our core principles, at least mine as a coach, is who you associate with, right?
Right.
And that goes to the culture thing. So with Fiduciary Alliance, like, talk a little about how your advisors associate with each other and with you guys, you and Anthony.
Yeah. So we keep it very collaborative as much as we can. I mean, we have monthly calls. Actually, this past year, what I did, normally I would lead these monthly calls, and then this last year, I said, each advisory group, so like, this is your call.
Right.
You got to bring something of value to the table to
I
the
like
group.
that.
I came in with very low expectations, like okay, hey, this month we did a surge and met, I was not expecting a lot. PowerPoints, presentations, things, the amount of stuff that these advisors brought to the group was amazing. It blew the doors off. And then, like, the next month, I'm like, okay, there's no way they're going to top that.
Right.
Oh my goodness, this next group.
Competitive animals,
right.
man. Like, they want to go after it. Yeah.
So they're bringing value to the group. We've had groups collaborate.
Great.
Because, I mean, look, we all still have to spend marketing dollars and things like that. Well, guess what? Like, what if we brought 3 of our groups together and we just paid one fee into this thing instead of me just paying a fee?
Like a fractional CMO or something
whatever.
like that.
And then we can do. We're all going to do the same thing.
Right.
So that's been a really good thing. We have our annual summit every year.
Yep.
And again, it's all our focus in this annual summit every year is growth. It's business development and growing as a firm and growing your clientele and all these other things. And that's what we're doing again this year. We did it. I think you did our first 2.
Right.
You did our first 2. We had it down at Sage Valley.
Yep.
And that was a lot of fun. And then the last 2, this will be our 4th year doing it, is downtown Greenville.
Yeah, you've outgrown.
We've outgrown. We bring everybody in, and like the people I have come speak, it's very specific. They're rowing along here with us,
Yep.
and they're doing the same thing. It's not like, there's people on the speaker circuit that come out or whatever.
Right.
We don't do that. We have people come in and they're bleeding just like we are.
And you have a lot of Fiduciary Alliance members actually speak.
Yeah.
Like you have your colleagues training your colleagues, which is really good. You know, from that perspective.
Yeah, it's a great place to be. And I did want to just circle back, because you talked about the type of folks that we go for, and I talked about the broker. The other type, and this is where we've seen also a lot of growth more recently, is there's that they're already an RIA.
Yep.
Now we've actually pulled some RIAs recently from other aggregators that have been just a bad situation.
Sure.
So there's that. But there's also that RIA, maybe it's a single practice or something, single person, and they just need to scale.
Yeah.
And they don't have it. And the amount of money they've got to invest into that to try to get everything to scale on their own is too much. So they can plug under us. They've got now the scale that they can leverage into.
Right.
And to what we're just talking about.
Yeah.
And they've got this thing around them that they can now start collaborating with other folks on, because you only know what you know. And that's the thing. Like, being independent is great.
Right.
But you only know what you know. And 9 times out of 10, and you say that one of the greatest things I learned from you is you have to work the business, which that's what most people do. Then you have to work on the business. Right. And, we talk about tactical and strategic and all these other things. But that for me has been an absolute game changer in my life and in my business, where we put our heads down, we work the business, and if we don't take a step back to work on the business, man, we're making a lot of progression and success moving down this way. But guess what? You need to be moving this way. You're moving that way. Like we don't ever take the time to do that. And I think when these groups plug in on us, we help them take a step back and work on that business and do that.
Do you find most of those are state registered RAs, the solopreneur type, or a little bit of everything?
Little bit of everything. Okay. Yeah, a little bit of everything. I mean, look, in this world, I mean, let's be honest, the big RAs out there, and I when I say big RAs, I'm usually saying like 300 million and up, meaning they're, they've got some size to them and a little bit of scale. There's so much money getting thrown at those folks, right? Sure. And they've got, they've got some money to potentially do some things on their own and things like that. But that $50 to kind of $150 million, I feel like that's the sweet spot right now. At least for a lot of years, it's been the sweet spot that's been overlooked.
Sure.
Because again, there might be 50 million today, or they might be 75 or whatever they are, but they're in growth mode.
That's right.
And they're not going to be that same thing 5 years from now or 10 years from now. So let's help you get there, and let's help you scale out so that you can reach those areas. And they also don't have that. Well, nowadays they're just slapping valuations on any. I mean, if you just fog a mirror and have some clients, they're like, we'll pay you 10 times whatever. I mean, so it's crazy now, but back not too long ago.
That's right.
They didn't care about those folks.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
No, that's good. That's a good point. So we're going to wrap this up in a few minutes. Where are we going? So tell me, like, your vision for Brian Boughner, Fiduciary Alliance, Parallel Financial, next 10 years. Like, what are you looking to build and create here?
Well, let me start by saying that you and I share something that I've heard you say a million times, and Anthony and I say it a million times as well. We don't plan on retiring.
We suck at it.
Yeah. We don't plan on. We love what we do, and we don't plan on retiring. And like I say that to people, and they're like, "Oh, that's a bunch of BS."
Right.
You're gonna, someone's gonna write a fat check your way, and this and that. And when you really look at our business, right? What do all these PE firms? What are they buying? They're buying the cash flow.
Yeah.
There's no asset there.
Right.
I mean, the asset's the clients, and guess what?
It's goodwill. It's goodwill. At the end, it's all goodwill.
Yeah, the clients can leave any day they want.
That's right.
There's nothing keeping them there.
That's right.
You're not buying you're buying the cash flow that business is generating. And that's creating all these great valuations right now. Yeah. The way we look at it is, I want to be a part of that cash flow as long as I can. Now, I want to be doing a lot less of this business.
Right.
Like, there's a lot of things I do today that I don't want to do.
Right.
And as I grow with the right culture and putting the right people in place and having that, I feel like I can continue to do this and until this goes away. Right. So that when we think about, like, you go to our website, fiduciaryalliance.org, it's like, we are not private equity backed. Like,
right.
We do not, like, and there's nothing wrong. I had great firms out there that have private equity. Again, I'm not poo-pooing it. It's just, there's a million ways.
It's not your thing.
It's not our thing, right? Yeah. So please don't, I'm not poo-pooing it, but we're not private equity backed. We, I've explained to you what we do. So when I look over the next 5 to 10 years, our goal is we'd like to bring on about 4 advisory firms a year that are growth minded, or advisors a year. That's it.
Right.
We've in this business, we'd love, like, every quarter we'd bring on another advisor. It doesn't work that way.
Perfect world, right?
Yeah, perfect world.
Yeah.
Sometimes you might only get 2 that year, and then the next year you might get 8, and then the next, it might all be in the fourth quarter, it might be in the first quarter, whatever. But how we are structuring this business is to just grow for a year, and it's got to be the right fit, and they have to be in growth mode. They have to be wanting to grow and be a part of something. They own their business. They own their clients.
Right.
They're building that value for themselves.
Right.
If they get to a point where maybe they do want to transition, we've got facilities to help them do that, at that point as well. So that's really it. Like, I've gone to your vision thing every, I don't know how many years in a row now down in South Florida. And, we build the 10-year plan, the 5-year plan. I do all that stuff. But right now, I don't know. Things, you write all that down on paper, and then you blink, and I gotta redo this all again.
Another year. Look, we're recording now, right here. We're early October, right, fourth quarter. I'm trying to figure out where 2024 went. Like, I literally think weren't we just in Orlando with our group like a month ago? Here we are 6 months later, right? 8 months later.
Yeah.
So it's really great. Look, I've enjoyed our collaboration, our friendship over the years, and likewise. I want to thank you for taking some time and sharing your story. It's a powerful story, and I just want to say this too, and this is not going to get all soft and buttery, but as an advisor, you're in a relationship business. As a coach, I'm in a relationship business. The currency we have in this game is not the assets or the AUM or the cash flow. It's all relational capital, right? Because without relational capital, there are no clients. Without relational capital, there are no advisors who want to come join you. Right. At the end of the day, it's really our currency, that relational capital. So we're going to make sure that all your websites are getting the show notes, everything like that. So we'll have to look for that, stuff like that. I want to thank everybody for being a part of this episode of the Magellan Network Show, and I'll see everybody again in 7 days.
Thanks.
Thank you for watching or listening to this episode of the Magellan Network Show. Hey, if any of this resonated with you, I invite you to come to MagellanNetwork.net, and we have a powerful group coaching community of like-minded advisors. Come in for a trial. You and I will have a one-on-one conversation. Let's see if I can help elevate your game both personally and professionally.